amazing. Okay, it's called Other Rails to LaGrange. And the reason why it's called that is because right across over here, we've been watching at least 3 or 4 trains come through here today. And that's what most people, and that's what they are celebrating here today, the 175th anniversary of when the trains first came down Main Street in LaGrange. But for a while in the 20th century, there was another rail route to LaGrange that you could follow, the Louisville and Interurban Railroad. Term interurban, good old Latin stuff, but mainly what it really means is between cities. Between, urbs are cities. And I saw this not too long ago. George W. Hilton, anyone ever read the Ghost Railroad books and other stuff, and Monon Railroad histories and that, he wrote them. But anyway, what characteristics of an interurban railroad? First of all, they're powered by electricity. The other thing is passenger service was the primary thing of the business. Equipment was heavier and faster than the urban streetcars or trolley cars that a lot of people think about. They operated on the tracks in city streets, and in rural areas, they usually had roadside tracks or they were in private rights of way. So that's kind of what made them different, not only from the steam railroad, if you like to call it, but also from the city trolley cars. This is a map of the Louisville and interurban system as it was at its greatest extent. In some ways, Louisville really didn't have a real interurban system. If you want to go to Chicago, there you saw it. Oh, even some of them are gone now, but still Chicago always took my mind as a great interurban city. California had some that went some pretty good distances. For the most part, I consider the ones in Louisville were suburban lines, except for 2. The line that went to LaGrange and the line that went to Shelbyville. These were served, you can see the route. I zeroed in on the LaGrange route. Starting at the corner over there where the junction was in St. Matthews, you can see Linden, Marcia, which was where the firehouse and shops were. There's apartment houses there now, so you never know anything was there. Ormsby, Lakeland, which had its own little electric railway. It had its private electric railway that brought coal cars off the L&N back into the plant. Some of them remember there still is an institution there, but that was where the mental hospital institution was in Jefferson County. It was at Lakeland. Then Anchorage, O'Bannon, today the site of the Ford plant, at least where the Y is. Then Pee Wee Valley, and on into Buckner, Anita Springs, which I looked at it today. And that's where the fairgrounds, Oldham County Fairgrounds, is now. Back then, it was a spa with a hotel and all that sort of thing. And some of us who grew up around here remember in the grocery stores, the Anita Spring water, which was similar to the bottled waters you get today. And then it ended, Magnesia Springs was the same thing, and then it ended at LaGrange. I said that, yes.
Was there a station stop at the reformatory?
Say again? No.
Was there a station stop?
As far as I know, I'm not researched it, so I can't answer that accurately. I don't think the reformatory was there when these were running.
Because we had like concrete buildings in Buckner, station stop, and then in front of the reformatory, there was concrete buildings that kind of matched them.
I don't know. The correct answer for me is I don't know. But I didn't see anything in any of the schedules of the reformatory being there.
Because we often wondered what the station stop name was. It's like Bonham.
And this map did not show all the stations, to be honest about it. It showed what they considered their major stations. Summarized, I don't know if you can see it or not up there. On Louisville and Eastern Railroad, as they like to call themselves, they were built to high interurban standards. This is a heavyweight interurban car. They call themselves the Yellow Flyer. It's black and white picture, but you can see the light color that this was a yellow car. It carried both passengers and had a baggage section in it. The stops that they listed here were Louisville, St. Matthews, Linden, Lakeland, Anchorage, O'Bannon, Pewee Valley, Crestwood, Buckner, and LaGrange. That's where they recommended. The idea was they could run hourly cars. They paralleled the steam railroad almost the whole distance, but the steam railroad, L&N exactly, ran roughly 2 trains a day. Now there was others, but there were 2 locals that came through a day that you could get on in the morning, go to Louisville, come back. But in between that, no, you were not going to be doing much. You weren't going to travel by train. So the interurban car could fill that niche. It was quick, it was fast to accelerate and decelerate, and it has certain advantages over the steam train. One of those advantages was it could take you right into the city. Where with the L&N, you had to go to the depot, wherever it was. There might be a stop somewhere in East Louisville or something like that. But these took you operating on the city streets on into downtown. This is the original station for the L&E. Actually, it was at 5th and Green Street. Green Street is now Liberty Street in Louisville. It was changed after the First World War. But anyway, this is a box motor or freight motor. In other words, it didn't carry passengers. It's primarily a self-propelled boxcar, if you want to look at it that way. And you can see the tracks where they could back into the station, and it operated both passengers and freight could both be loaded here. In later years, when the Louisville and Interurban bought it, which we'll talk about in a little bit, they built a passenger station downtown. It not only served the Louisville and Interurban, it also served the Indiana Railroad and the Louisville and New Albany Street Electric Railway. And so it was really a union station, not quite on the scale that Indianapolis had, but it was still a union station. And this is an Indiana car. Indianapolis heading on its way to Indianapolis, and get a picture of it leaving the station. This station was between between Jefferson and let me make sure I get it right here. I just want to get it mixed up. Okay, it's between Liberty and Jefferson and 3rd and 4th. The International Convention Center occupies the whole block where that station was. Back in the day when I was in grade school, when Fred Flintstone was driving the buses, and that you had to think of school checks. In other words, there were discount tickets you could get to ride the buses, and this was one of the places where you could go get them, buy them at. As I said, the cars left sort of follow the route. The car left Louisville. It stopped at St. Matthews, which I did not include here. It was a small station in St. Matthews. It was basically out in the middle of the street at Shelbyville Road near Breckenridge Lane. Once it got to Beechwood, which was also considered on the railway Beechwood Junction, then the routes split off. This was right at the Waterston Expressway and Shelbyville Road interchange. When you go off, you can see off to the left, the tracks went off to LaGrange. Straight ahead, they were heading to Shelbyville. The Y track here was enabling them to turn around. Cars that maybe not going all the way or could turn around for whatever reason to head back into town. If you follow that route today, I think it's called New LaGrange Road. The road where we had our Christmas party on. Yeah, that's the old route of the Interurban, is why it went through there. Like I said, it was right at the area where the Waterston Expressway is now. And I was reading an account where a customer was complaining that they had to change cars there. There was no place to wait. It was cold. It was rainy. And it was a letter to the editor complaining highly about it. And so the Interurban company said, "Oh, we're sorry, but in other words, they ran out of cars, and they didn't have enough cars for people to get on." The stations were similar to this along the way. This was a small combination station, obviously at Linden. Just beyond there, maybe another half mile was where the firehouse And they actually, the Louisville and Eastern generated their own electricity in the beginning. Because, Louisville and Interurban, when they took it over, it kind of eliminated all of that. Louisville and Eastern built a station in, they built a small station similar to the one you just saw in Linden and Anchorage. Then they came back and built their headquarters building. The Louisville and Eastern crossed over the L&N and Anchorage on a bridge. In fact, the abutments are still on the south side, and then made their way into Anchorage. And this was the headquarters building, the freight depot, passenger depot, and also the telephone exchange was all located in this building. This building sat here for a long time. It had operated as a restaurant. Then it was moved up the hill and is now the village anchor, which I think they kind of messed it up, my personal opinion, when they moved it up there, but it's much more practical and it's still around today, unlike a lot of historical buildings. The Pee Wee Valley Terminal, again, it was right across from the railroad track. So it paralleled the L&N almost all the way from the Grange, certainly from St. Matthews to the Grange, it more or less paralleled the L&N, which caused some confrontations when they first built it, because there was even armed people showing up to block the L&E from doing its crossing the L&N. Railroads are very picky about people crossing the right of ways. And that's why eventually in Anchorage, they went to cross it overhead. And I'm sure even that caused some problems at the L&N at the time. This is the, at Buckner, this is the combination of powerhouse, freight depot, passenger depot, and also had a stock pen. The only way I can figure that they probably, many interurban companies, even into Louisville, ran stock cars. Louisville and Interurban, as far as I can tell, never had a stock car. I would think they would have taken a car like Car 100 that we saw in one of the early pictures, lined it with straw, loaded whatever stock they were going to have in it, and then they, we don't think of it nowadays. How did a lot of stock get to the stockyards? Sure, some of it went by rail. Some of it was unloaded somewhere close by and driven on the streets. So even up until the 1920s, they were driving stock on the streets. So it's not that all unusual to happen. This is the building. This poor old building's gone through a lot of paint schemes over the years. This was when it was a preschool. I was by there today on the way here, and it's painted a brown color, and it's now an Italian restaurant. And they were getting, it really smelled pretty good when I was out there today. So they were getting ready. I looked it up. I wanted to make sure they were still in business, which they were. In fact, they had a lot of cars out there. The cars finally arrived in LaGrange. The person, the caption on the original picture said they have no idea what the occasion was or why the children were decorating in front of the car. But this is one of the larger cars, and it's right in front of the depot. Now, where was the depot? You know where the food trucks are today? That's where the depot was, right there in that lot. It was torn down sometime after 1979. I'm not sure exactly when, and to build a parking lot. Before that, right in its later days, it was an antique store. So it stayed in something to do with it for the time. This is the car, one of the smaller cars that they bought. Some of their cars they bought from Jeffersonville at the car company, American Car and Foundry across the river in Jeffersonville. This one was a Niles car. It was smaller. And again, it's in front of the depot, and you can see the proximity of the L&N tracks right across the street pretty much from the depot itself. We go over there, configuration is still the same. Right across the street is the L&N tracks, and I think on the other side is the farmer's market nowadays, something like that. The depot was gone. There's a little museum on the corner of this property, more or less, and it had at one time a display. I was going to get up there and see if it's still there, but I understand it's been taken down or moved. But local modeler, here's some Division 8 members. Some remember Miles Hale. Miles along with Jim Calvert. Calvert was a trolley and traction historian, and the two of them together built a display for the museum. And this is a 1/4" or O scale model. And I included it in here because it shows the colors that the depot was when it was in service. The original plan was that they had a working car, and it was in a case, and you pressed a button and the car went around. But understand, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but somebody thought that the bare copper wire looked unsightly, so they painted it black. And like the real Interurban cars, it collected the current off the overhead trolley car and returned probably wire and returned it to the tracks. Well, no more collecting. I've been told that, but either way, I understand it's not. I've not been in there, so I don't know whether it's still there or not. But Miles did a good job on it. This is the configuration of what it looked like. We're looking, let's say, towards Louisville at the top. The tracks came down Main Street, went circled around the building. In the back was a spur track with the for the freight station part of it. Also, they could hold over cars on that spur track. But basically, just a simple loop. They turned it around and headed on back. The thing about it was in the 1911, the Louisville and Eastern, they built all this wonderful infrastructure and went bankrupt. They could not pay for it at all. The Louisville and Interurban finally took it over. They operated until 1935. By 1935, along came automobiles for one thing. And that really hit the Interurbans tough because they followed the main roads. Sure, it's convenient to ride the train, but it's more convenient to drop into your Model T and head on in on your own into town. So it became less and less profitable. And in 1935, along with almost all the interurban system locally died. The last interurbans to run to Louisville were in 1939 with the Indiana interurbans. If you want to consider the tracks to New Albany interurban, in fact, they went between two cities. That service ended in 1945 when Louisville Railway Company took up the tracks in Portland Avenue, and they couldn't get there anymore. So I kind of ended all that. But anyway, that 1935 was pretty much the end of the whole thing. Give you a good perspective of it. This is a car pulling up in front of the station. You can see been modified since then, but the station of the steeple for the Haven Baptist Church, which is there over there, it shows in the background and kind of gives you an idea of what they did. Short and dirty history, but does anyone have any questions? Now I'm going to have to look up your question. I probably won't get back to you, but I'm going to look it up. Okay, when anyone, you know when the reformatory opened up? Does anybody know? I'll look it up because I'm really curious now about that. I learn something every time I do one of these things. Someone asks me a question, I don't know the answer, and I go back and I look it up and learn something new about it. So, okay, anything else? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you.